Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Super Tease video, and it's accountability hour. Last week, I released a tier list predicting where I think the specializations were going to land with the launch of 11.2, and a lot of you have been asking me to update this tier list to go along with the changes that are moving forward into today's changes and the actual official launch of the season. So we're going to be reviewing it. I got this tier list right here, which is what I predicted, exactly the same as it was, and we're going to be making some alterations to it now moving forward for the rest of the patch. So Beast Mastery Hunter, we had it on S tier. I think that it is still a really solid specialization, but I do think Marksmanship Hunter is completely busted. So I'm actually going to be dropping Beast Mastery Hunter down to A tier. Marksmanship Hunter, you're staying exactly where you are, just absolutely cranking, just totally destroying people, absolute monster. Demonology, with my original prediction for the patch, complete monster. However, it is getting nerfed. So do I feel like it's going to be shifting positions at all as a result of that? It's possible. It's losing damage, but it's still tanky and has a lot of crowd control. So I do anticipate it's probably still the best Warlock spec. But do I think it's an S tier spec? I think I'm going to opt to drop it down just to play it safe onto A tier for now. But my prediction originally was pretty spot on, okay? Frost Mage, this is one where I think I was incorrect. I think that the nerfs to Blizzard with its cooldown and a lot of removal of instant cast spells has made it a lot more stationary, and that Arcane should have been up here on S tier and not Frost with my prediction. And I do think with the changes that are coming through that Frost will likely drop and probably remain on A tier. But then we're going to have to see where it goes from there. But I do kind of expect maybe a Mage meta shift, mostly because Frost can't get away with spamming as many instant casts as it did before, and it's losing some damage as well. Subtlety Rogue, I definitely overhyped. I played it myself a lot this week. I think that it's good. It's really good at enabling the best specs. It's probably the best spec to enable a marksman or an arcane mage to one-shot people. But as a standalone, I don't think it is actually as intimidating as it was on the previous patch. So for me, I'm going to drop it down onto A tier from S tier. Demon Hunter was really good, but we didn't see it because it was completely overshadowed by how OP arcane mages and marksmanship hunters were, and obviously having Demon Hunter does not excel in a meta where you're getting one shot. But arcane is coming down in power, but marksman isn't. Ret burst still isn't. It's still just in a really solid spot, so I'm tempted to leave it here, but I don't think it's the best melee. So again, best class goes from top to bottom, left to right, if you're not understanding that. Ret Paladin, most deservedly here, is still on S tier. Remarkable damage output, insane support, high durability, really well-rounded, definitely a good pick. Arms Warrior, this is another one where I think I might have oversold it. I think that it is still really good. Do I think that it's S tier though? I think I'm going to be dropping it. I'm going to be dropping it a tiny bit. This is definitely a controversial one because it could be between A and S. But I think considering how good mages and hunters are and DPS shamans, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult to get a lot of things going with it. It's still really strong, but I definitely don't think it's S tier. Feral Druid, I think I was pretty spot on with the S tier pick moving into the prediction. Now with the changes coming through, where do I think that it's going to go? Again, it's getting nerfed, but it's getting buffed at the same time. So it's really, I think it's probably just going to stay the same. I think it's still going to be kind of the go-to. I think it's between like Demon Hunter and Feral at the moment, maybe with a couple of Ret squeezed in, but I'm going to leave it on S tier. Discipline Priest, honestly, I think it was surprising how good Paladin was, even despite the nerfs, right? I think Paladin should have been up here and not Discipline Priest for the prediction. And then moving forward, where do I think that Discipline Priest is going to be going? I think it's still easily a solid A, but I'm dropping it from S tier for now. Holy Paladin should have been S tier. But now I'm going to confuse myself as to what spec I've already ranked and moved through here. So let's try and not confuse myself too much here. Ellie Shaman I had on A tier. I think it's still fine to leave it on A tier. Could possibly be S tier, but I think A tier is appropriate. Maybe you'll drag it up to like closer to the top of the A tier for now. Arcane Mage definitely should have been up here. And I think it's still probably going to be up here. A lot of Arcane Mages are telling me they're still getting these really big crit barrages even without Arcane Flux. And I think Arcane might actually take over, at least on the ladder. Tournament play, we might actually see Fire Mage, which is what we'll talk to in a moment. But I think Arcane, even with the nerfs, is still going to be an S tier specialization. Destruction Warlock, it's kind of hit or miss. You can feel really strong in lobbies where there's no disruption, no melee. But when there is melee, a lot of disruption, you feel very weak relative to Demonology. So you can be enabled if you have a rogue. If you're teaming up with a rogue, it can feel really good. So this is a tough one for me. I think I want to drop it down to B tier just because I think it's got some very difficult matchups. So I'm going to drop it down to B tier for now. I think relative to other casters, also durability is the most important quality to rank, and it just doesn't have that level of durability. Shadow Priest, on the other hand, definitely does. Shadow is getting some nerfs, whereas Boomy is getting some buffs. So I think I'm going to leave Shadow as the best of the A tier, and we're going to move Boomy up onto S tier. And I could see possibly Boomy being the best spec. It's getting a significant damage juice on Tuesday, and it was already really good. I think Boomy might be slowly taking over. We covered Arms and Subtlety already. Windwalker, I think I was spot on with this one at A tier, and we're going to leave it at A tier moving forward. Just decently well-rounded, has some counters that hold it back, has some niche situations where it can be good though. Survival, I don't know if I overhyped this or not. My experience on it was pretty negative, but I think I'm just bad at it. I've seen other survival hunters and it looks remarkable, but I think you're really outshined about how good Marksman is. You just don't have any of the disadvantages, or you have all the disadvantages and no advantages like Marksman has. So I do think survival is kind of tough to rank. I'm going to slap it down into B tier for now, but I do think it's a very difficult one to rank. Holy Paladin, even with the nerfs, I think it could still be up here. And the main reason is just Marksman hunters are so popular. It's just you're the only class that has like significant cooldowns to kind of power through it. So I think Paladin probably still ends up on S tier. Preservation Evoker, really good with the changes, I think. Just solid. Verdant Embrace giving you Nullifying Shroud isn't completely breaking the game, but it's definitely a nice alleviation to it. I think it was improved there. Mistweaver Monk, this one I'm going to drop mostly because I think that you're just absolutely destroyed by Hunters and Mages, and I think Hunters and Mages are still going to be like these high CC classes like Boomkin, Mage, and Hunter. If they're viable, you're going to have a hard time, I think. So I do kind of want to drop Mistweaver, maybe not too far, because it's still viable, right? B tier means you're viable. These other guys just have a tiny bit of an edge above you. So I think I've been pretty wrong, though, about this bottom tier. So it's going to be very exciting when we get to that there. But we covered Destro. Affliction, I think B tier is a pro. Actually, I kind of think it might have squeezed up to A tier. This is another one, I think, much like Warrior, which could have a little bit controversy as far as rankings, which is good. You want it to be like, I can't decide what spec is actually the best. That's the perfect spot for the game where you just don't know. So between B and A, it's really hard. I'm gonna leave it here for now. Devastation, honestly, I think Devastation this is a fair spot for it as well, especially with losing tier sets. It's a fair spot for the assessment of this week, and I think it's a fair assessment for when it loses tier set because it's gonna lose a little bit of power there. Assassination, I was absolutely wrong on though. Assassination Rogue definitely jumped up. I would say that's probably best of the A tier. Maybe it's even S tier. I'll leave it on the top of the A tier. I think these guys might have an edge, especially moving into Tuesday, but Assassination was vastly improved. Frosty K also vastly improved. With the nerfs coming, it's probably still going to be A tier. So we'll just slot it in here. Probably was better than Asa, but we're moving into the future with these predictions. But Frosty K was much improved. Enhanced with Shaman is getting giga buffs, so I can't see a world where Enhance isn't at least A tier. So we're just gonna kind of just smack this thing up here and then kind of deal with that, right? So let's see what we can do here. So Enhance, I'll probably leave it behind everything for now, just due to its limitations on mobility. But I don't know. It's getting so many buffs. It's hard not to give it a higher ranking. Resto Druid, I think it was probably an A tier, and I was wrong about this week. But losing your set bonus, I think you're gonna fall off hard. So I kind of want to do this, but I'll leave you on B tier because the healer balance is decent. Resto Shaman, some people think it's going to take over the meta. I'm not sold on it. I think you're probably the best of the B tier at the moment. Holy Priest, I think this is a fair assessment. I saw a lot of Holy Priest struggling. While it is still viable, it felt like a lot of Holy Priests were struggling. So I think B tier is a fair place for it. Disc and Prez, I think again, healer balance is really close. I don't. This is more dependent on like how many counters you have in the current meta than it is you not being viable. I think almost every healer is actually viable for ladder play. We get tournament level, maybe it starts, it becomes really counter picky there, but I could see a world where Holy Priest is a little bit higher than this. Now C tier, this is where I was completely wrong. So Fire Mage is really good, but it wasn't an Arcane Mage. Frost and Fire were actually both really strong, but it wasn't an Arcane Mage. It's getting a little Meteor nerf, but I still think it could compete with Frost. I'm gonna put it ahead of Frost on A tier. It's a lot better. Augmentation Evoker. I really want to do something that might surprise you all right now, but I think Augmentation Evoker could absolutely take over the game right now. I'm putting it on A tier. It sounds ridiculous. You never see it until yesterday when I queued into it a bunch. And it does insanely high DPS. It has really good support for something like Ret Og or something like that. It was really good. It was surprisingly strong. So I'm definitely not going to sleep on Og anymore. Fury Warrior, much like Arms, I think it's equally competitive with Arms Warrior. I think I don't like the changes that they gave it, the little damage buffs week to week moving in, and now moving into the reset here. I think Fury Warrior and Arms Warrior are actually almost the most closely balanced that they've been in a very long time, at least when it comes to ladder play. Unholy DK, I think this guy was maybe S tier, honestly. So I was completely wrong with it. I was underranking it moving into that week. Moving into this next week, do I want to underrank it again? I don't think so. I'm going to say that it's at least B tier, if not possibly higher. I could see it completely not, the nerfs to the wounds not actually mattering with the damage breakdowns that I was looking at for Unholy. And it seems like it's more durable for some reason, which doesn't make sense because I don't see any of the classes that, were giving it trouble getting nerfs. Most of them, like Warrior or Windwalker, in most cases got buffed, but it randomly was feeling really good. But Outlaw Rogue, I think I was spot on with this assessment, and it's still going to be the case for Outlaw Rogue. Unless they apply the same spell logic with Divine Ultimate Penitence from Disc Priest to Killing Spree, so it only hits players and not pets. Killing Spree will just be completely nullified by all the random spawning pets. As a result, they need to just put Control C, the coding for Ultimate Penitence to not target pets, and Control V that into Killing Spree. That would go a long way to helping it, but it still needs more damage on top of that, I think, to be viable. And when it comes to the tanks are actually good. The tanks are actually good. Now, how good? I don't know, but like, they're actually scary. They do a lot of damage. They focused on buffing them for Battlegrounds, and bro, they're actually scary. So I'm not gonna put them on the ranking, but like, they're actually all very scary. I think that honestly they juggled a lot of specs moving up. It's just Outlaw was lagging behind. Maybe Warlock needs a little bit more defense. Got to maybe be a little bit reactionary with Devastation with losing its set bonus. Survival could easily be above this. These guys could be above this. We could be moving into a very epic season if they hone in on a couple of the outliers, right? I think Boomkin Marksman Burst and Arcane Burst is still probably going to be a problem. Keep an eye on Ret, Demon Hunter, and Feral and Paladin. But we could, like, the fact that it's like this confusing moving into the start of the season is awesome. I actually think it's legitimately awesome. Because that's the best way to start, is just having no real idea, like, what is the absolute best thing. So you can go into the season basically playing whatever you want. And I'm sure the best thing will eventually pop up, but for the first couple of weeks, I think it's going to be some fun exploration. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, my thoughts on this. Don't let this deter you from playing something either. If you want to play it, there are ways to make it work, except maybe not Outlaw Rogue. But there are definitely ways to make it work if you're having fun with something. And I think that this patch is going to have a lot of explorations with the new set bonuses that are going to be coming out week to week, that you can switch specs and they buff different hero talents. And I think it's going to be really good. I think it's going to be really good. They just got to make sure they keep an eye on things like Nether Flux and Arcane Mage, and they don't let that stuff run too rampant. A couple tweaks and a little bit of a pick-me-up for Outlaw, and maybe a defense pick-me-up for Affliction and Destro. And yeah, I think it could end up being really fun. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.